Spoiler warning for God of War Ragnarok. With the end of God of War Ragnarok, we see the death of Odin, the fall of Asgard, and pretty much all of the Norse plot lines wrapped up. So the question now becomes, where do we go from here? And that's what I want to talk about today, and what I've been kind of pondering, and some ideas that I've just been thinking about. So, first, there's the obvious answer of potential DLC and a new game. Well, it's already been kind of confirmed that we're probably not going to be getting DLC for this game, and it's also been confirmed that this will be the last game in the Norse mythos. So, what would that look like? Well, there's a couple of different options, I think. For starters, we have what Atreus is doing in looking all over the Nine Realms for more hiding giants, although that's still technically part of Norse mythos. So it'd be kind of weird to put that into another game, and should probably talk about what, if we do get another game, where would we go. So if you don't know, there has been a lot of instances where when God of War 3 was coming out, the original idea was to kill all the gods in Greece in the first part of the game, and then from there a bunch of different gods from Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, and I can't remember another place, but though those gods then fighting for the new land to control, and then Kratos having to fight all them off, and then at the end, after killing all the gods, Kratos actually becomes one of the wise men at, like, Jesus's birth, and Cory Barlog, one of the head directors and one of the big brains behind God of War, has stated this multiple times. If you want, you can go look it up. But these last two games has been in Norse mythology, so that kind of covers that. So the next assumption would be we would go to Egyptian mythology. So that is a possibility, and if we do get another game, that's more than likely where we're gonna go, but I just don't know what the story would be for that. Like, would we still be following Kratos? Would it be more of us playing as Atreus? Like, I don't know. Obviously, we didn't know what kind of story we were going to get with the Norse mythos, but I don't know. I feel like there's still more to talk about and more story to tell in the Norse mythos, because we have a couple of loose ends, like, all wrapped up. Like I talked about before, we have Atreus going off and finding all the other giants, hiding giants in the Nine Realms. So while we don't have to necessarily play through that, that's still something that kind of has to be addressed, especially going into another game where it's not going to be Norse. And it'd be kind of weird if we're doing Egyptian mythology and then we're just talking about the giants and bringing up stuff from the Norse games. So there's that. There's also the potential of whatever tier could do. If you don't know, in the post games, you can actually go off and find the actual tier, and you can talk to them. And really, he doesn't say or do a whole lot, but I think the one thing that stands out to me is that he remembers Kratos' name, but he can't recall who he is. So, while I don't think, like, I don't know, there could be a potential there to where he remembers who Kratos is and all the destruction he caused in Greece, but then you also have what he did in the Norse mythos, taking down one of the most, like, oppressive and evil gods in Odin. So Tyr kind of strikes me as the god to, like, not necessarily forgive and forget, but, like, balance out. I get, like, Kratos has done a lot of, like, horrible things, right? But he's also just saved an entire, like, all the nine realms from Odin. So there could be a potential there to where, like, he kind of, like, tests Kratos, maybe, and, like, make sure that, like, he is a different person than who he was in Greece, and see if he's worthy to be, like, the protector of the nine realms. Because that's kind of where we're at the end of Ragnarok. Atreus is off finding the giants, and then Kratos, Freya, and Mimir are kind of the only, like, gods around to basically look after the nine realms. Again, Tyr is wandering around doing his own thing once you free him, and then Thrud, I think her name is, Thor's kid, you can find her, and she has Mjolnir. So, and her mom is also alive as well. So there's still remnants of the old pantheon, but it's more or less all of the good people at this point, or quote unquote good. So I don't know. I think it would be kind of interesting to see Tyr test Kratos to see if he's the changed person that we see him as now, especially because at the end of the game we also see Kratos have a prophecy about him where he becomes a god that people, like, respect and praise and show appreciation towards, more than likely just because of what he did for at Ragnarok, and, like, defeating Odin and basically saving the nine realms from Odin's and the rest of the Aesir's, like, foothold, basically. Tyranny, that's the word that I'm looking for. He saves them from all their tyranny. So I think for him to, like, be a revered god like that, maybe Tyr wants to test him. So that's something. But again, that'd be kind of weird to throw into a game about Egyptian mythology. And of course, like, this is all stuff that could happen, like, off screen, and we would just jump into Egyptian mythology, but that comes with the question of who we would play and who we would follow. Would we play as Atreus? And, like, it would be like a time skip, maybe, to where he's a lot older now, he's a lot more wiser. Maybe he completed his quest to find all the giants, and we get some mention of that. And because of, like, Atreus's, like, he looks up to Tyr, kind of, in a way. Maybe he kind of follows in his footsteps as a god that roams the other pantheons and the other realms, for lack of a better term, to try and, like, make peace, or just kind of keep the peace and make sure that, like, no other gods are trying to do anything as horrible as Odin did. There's a potential for that. I also think that maybe we could play as Kratos, and then later he has to go to Egypt for whatever reason, and then we see Atreus later in the game and they get to reunite. So there's a potential for that. The big thing is just what would be the reason for going into the Egyptian mythos, or whatever mythos they decide to do for the next game, if there is a next game, right? So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Another kind of loose end that we have at the end of Ragnarok is Sindri. And I think it's really weird to just leave that open. Like, obviously, like, I didn't expect him to, like, get over his grief of Brock so immediately and be so ready to forgive Atreus and Kratos, right? But I do think it's kind of weird to just leave that open. And again, in whatever mythos that we go to next, it'd be kind of out of place for him to just come in and then they resolve all their stuff there, right? So, and side note, I think it's very weird that Atreus wasn't there for Brock's funeral. Like, Sindri was the one that, like, Atreus had the most connection to, you know? So, for him to go off on his journey before, like, they could somewhat resolve what happened, I don't know. Like, again, I wasn't expecting anything to be fully resolved, but I think it's weird that Atreus didn't come to pay his final respects to Brock, especially for how guilty he felt about the whole thing. And while I think it's nice that Kratos and Freya and Mimir are all there to try and comfort him, whether Sindri wants it or not, Atreus not being there just feels weird. So that's kind of another thing in the Norse, like, story that kind of needs to be explained and played out. Like, I don't know, I think it would be weird to jump into the next game and then try and resolve these little plot points from the Norse mythos just in another game. Another kind of thing is seeing Kratos become, like, the praised god that he is prophesized to be. Like, seeing what all he could do and kind of not be a ruler, but be a guardian. Guardian is a better word for the other 9 realms, right? He guards over, like, the Norse mythos and the 9 realms there. And then Atreus would probably just wander around being, like, similar to Tyr, like I said before, just going around and making sure that the other pantheons are kind of in peace and the other gods are kind of, like, in line, quote unquote, so that way there's nobody that's tries to do as much as Odin did, because Odin caused a lot of damage to the 9 realms, basically. He basically had a foothold over them. So that's kind of some of the ideas that I have. Trying to think of anything else, really. I mean, I think my biggest predictions, quote unquote, is that we'd be more than likely going to Egypt in the next game. I would take a guess that we would be playing as Atreus, and he would be in that mythos for whatever reason, whether he's still looking for the giants, whether he's going around being like tier or for another purpose. We don't know, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that Atreus will probably be like our main character going forward for God of War. At least that's how he's kind of set up as for right now. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot more of a shift from Kratos into Atreus and seeing where his story goes. I don't, as much as I like playing as Kratos, and there's still a lot more story to tell between those two. I think that as old as he is, with all he's done, and now with his kind of prophecy to be more or less the guardian of the Norse mythos and the Nine Realms, I think that it makes sense that we see a shift from Kratos into Atreus. And of course, I would bet money that if we do play as Atreus, that Kratos would show up at some point, because, I mean, it's God of War. It is, at the end of the day, God of War was started with Kratos, like, which it would be kind of, I guess, an uphill battle, quote unquote, to try and start that shift into Atreus, because obviously God of War is Kratos' story. But I think with Ragnarok and all of the setup that we have for Atreus and kind of the shift that we see, I think it makes sense that we're going to start veering away from Kratos and follow more of Atreus. Or we just don't get another game at all, and this is just where it kind of ends, which I really don't think is going to happen, but there's always that potential, right? So those are kind of all my thoughts. I'm sure that I'm forgetting something, or there's some other things that could happen, or stuff that I just haven't read or not aware of. So, of course, as always, leave your ideas and your thoughts in the comments. I will be down there reading them, wanting to discuss with you guys, because truthfully, I want to see more God of War. I love this series. I don't want it to drag out for too long, and we might reach that point if it's another game about Kratos. But I mean, look, I never thought that after all the games in Greece that we'd ever see Kratos again, right? And to bring him back in such a big way and nailing it, like, these God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, like, blow the other three games out of the water. By the other three games, I mean, like, the original God of War trilogy. Like, as much as I love those games, 2018 and Ragnarok just are so good, and I'd love to see more stories with Kratos and Atreus and seeing all what they could do. So I have faith in the team, obviously. Like, if they did this well with bringing Kratos back and basically rebooting the entire franchise, like, I have nothing but faith that if we do get another God of War game, it's just gonna be amazing and just as good. But I don't want the series to be dragged out too long. I don't want it to overstay its welcome. I am a big what's the word? I would rather see something end, and rather than see it carry on and like not be like as good, because that's kind of what happened with the Greek mythos, right? Is that after the original trilogy, we got the other three games, and all three of those were kind of okay at best, right? I know everybody is kind of like indifferent or not really a big fan of those games, which fair. But I don't want like something like that to happen again, you know? So I'd rather them just end on a strong note and we have the amazing games that we have, rather than them try to drag it out for as long as possible. And I don't think that they're going to do that. I trust like Corey and the rest of the team to, like, if they think that this is where they want to end it, then I think that they should just end it, or I trust them to make the decision, if they want to keep pushing forward, that they have more story to tell. And I think there is a lot more story to tell, especially with Atreus growing into his own and doing his own thing, and him like doing whatever. So I have rambled on for long enough. Those are all my thoughts. I apologize for sounding kind of weird. I probably should have stated this at the beginning, but I am getting over a sickness, so apologies. But just want to get my thoughts out there about the possibility of what could happen next for God of War, because I love this series. I want to see more, but, you know, if it ends, it ends. But if we keep going, I am more than happy to play more, as long as the story remains as high quality as it has been. And I have total faith in Corey and the rest of the team to make those types of decisions. So, with all that being said, leave your thoughts and in the comments below. I would love to read them and talk about it and see what kind of ideas you guys come up with, because there's, I mean, there are plenty of ideas to go around, and just because this is what I think, it's different from you. So that's all from me. Leave your comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Ring the bell for more uploads. I'm going to try and post videos a lot more frequently and try and get on a schedule for myself. And yeah, so hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Love each other, love yourselves, be kind, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.